We are at the world's largest sign museum. This is American Sign Museum in Cincinnati, Ohio. We're gonna go in here in a little bit, so come along. How cool, this is really neat. Nice gift shop. Look at that. Burger King, Shapiro's, DeSoto, Sunoco. Curly Clothes, golf sign, got the Kelly Springfield tires.
Garrett was with us. How much you think that's up for me? How much you think that's up for me?
Right. I'm sure the people watching this will remember a lot of these signs from your childhood, from your local town that you grew up in. You'll probably see signs that you can reflect on. Pure gasoline, Ford, shoe repair, coal batteries, candy stores, drug company, Ohio. Look at the Goodyear Wingfoot. This is interesting. These were the mantles, the gas mantles that would burn. And then this side would be Penn Fuel Gas. So something my buddy Jason pointed out was this sign up here will tell you it's the early neon era in the 1930s to 39. So everything we're seeing so far is 30 through 39, and then post World War II neon era here, 45 through 1960. Look at that, Eagles Club, Hayford Brothers Glass Company, window and auto plate. We were talking about window stuff today. Emmanuel Baptist Church, Goodyear signs. So yeah, these are 1940s porcelain through the 60s. And this is neat. This is all your enamel collars and various manufacturers. Look at that. OK Used Cars, Kaufman's Chevrolet. We'll have to look up where Kaufman's was. Maybe Ohio, not sure. But now we're getting into the plastic era, 1950 through 1970. Bus Depot, Greyhound Bus, Colonel Sanders, KFC, Shell. You can tell these are illuminated differently because it's a plastic. So something we pointed out was these are signs in their original crates, new old stock, 1950s. Look at this, in their original crate, never been out. So these are original crates. Inside, never been taken out. Still NOS. This Philco is in its original crate box. Howard Johnson's Restaurant, cocktails, Skyview, vacancy. So these are from the 50s and 60s here. Foster's Old Fashioned Freeze. Okay guys, this is gonna blow your mind. Look at this McDonald's hamburger sign. That is huge. It's awesome. Look at how big it looks in here, but yet going down the road, we just pass it by and don't realize the perspective of how big it is. This museum is amazing how they've recreated, like you're going down the street and here you are back in the 1940s and 50s. It's awesome. So this is the blueprint of the sign. Incredible. This would have been the building and this would have been the arch. The whole entire blueprint, 15 cents. So this is a 1963 Speedy McDonald's sign, Huntsville, Alabama. The total cost for the removal, transportation, restoration, and installation of the sign was $30,000. This example, the iconic Speedy sign, originally identified one of the several franchise stores in Huntsville, Alabama, owned by Steve Johnson family. The sign was threatened with destruction when the family planned to expand the store in 2008 and needed to move the sign closer to the street. The city would not grant the variance to move to reinstall the sign, and a sign such as this is grandfathered, meaning although it's too large for the current sign code, it is permitted to remain as long as it is not removed. Various options were explored to keep the sign in native Huntsville, but the cost of moving and restoring the sign to a local park or the public place proved to be too much. The Johnsons then approached the museum about purchasing the sign. And like I said, a deal was made and the museum arranged to have the sign taken down and transported here in Cincinnati. And like I said, the total cost was $30,000 to get it here. Many more this way. Oh, wow. Howard Johnson's. Tune in place, late 1950s, Compton, California. The sign originally identified as Earl Scheib Auto Painting Franchise and sat at the top of a pole together with a neon sign below. It consists of sheet metal rotating globe with neon cars on a Saturn ring. For years, it sat above the LA freeway. Note the bullet hole entry and the exit points. Amazing. Old style lager cafe. And got the Earl Scheib paint sign. It is really cool how they've made it like a little town inside with the doors and the windows. Howard Johnson's ice cream, 28 flavors. Now, that is amazing. Zenith Radio Television, Ingersoll Rand, Ingersoll Radio. Radio and TV. It's amazing. They've done a really good job at recreating all this, like back in the day. So you got Nunbush, Lee Overalls, Ralston's. I remember some of these names. Curly Clothes, Falstaff, Freeman Shoes, Shoe Repair, Crosley Radios, Pepto-Bismol, Air Condition for your comfort by Radiola dealer, RCA. Duro sign letter number decals. An old mailbox. So to tell you a little bit about this sign here, this Howard Johnson Restaurants and Ice Cream, this was taken from Utica, New York and brought here in I think it said 19, yeah, they removed the sign in the early 1990s after the store closed, the restaurant. Papadino's Pizza. And this Acapulco Mexican food sign. Wow. Bernie's Barbershop. So these guys here are painting this mural on the wall here. They have a projector and they're projecting it up and then they're painting. They said so far this has taken 3 days. This will be the 4th day. And it's amazing how important shoes were. I mean, shoe repair. You know, you owned a pair of shoes for a long time and you just get them repaired. Nowadays, you just throw them away and go buy another pair of shoes. Amazing. GE. Pizza King. Hey, Jason. Oh, I see that. Pizza King over here. Vic Casano. Mom Donasi. 1950 to 80. Yeah. Yep. Chevrolet. Yep. Look at the old Kroger sign. Yep. We've been atop Rock City Lookout Mountain many times. This is legitimately a barn. I mean, you can see this is authentic as it can get. And they've brought it in here and reconstructed it for the museum. Wilson Art Stores. Mail pouch tobacco. That was a barn, and they brought a siding in here.
Shopland was a shopping center, its name drawn from the space craze that ensued after Sputnik was launched in 1957. The owner had sketched out a rough design for the sign and shopped it around to local sign companies for the best price, but no one took him seriously. Undeterred, he decided to build the sign himself and hung it on a pole overlooking the shopping center for more than 30 years. You will also notice signs displayed in wood crates. These signs are still in their original shipping containers and are referred to as NOS, or New Old Stock, which from the sign collector's point of view means mint in the box.
Incredible. Absolutely.
Our next room will look at signs that are definitely not mint in the box. Welcome to Main Street, USA. Vintage signs from our collection as they might have looked in their original locations in towns across the United States. The storefronts have been designed and built based upon a sign or several signs from the museum's collection. Faux antique signs created by a select group of 28 sign painters from across North America fill out each storefront. The windows of each storefront become themed display cases featuring smaller signs and artifacts from the museum's collection. In the 1500 block of Cincinnati's over-the-road neighborhood, the hardware store closed in 2009, and its building was sold to become a wine bar. The museum inquired about acquiring the neon-lit porcelain letters. Further conversations determined that The entire storefront facade of porcelain enameled panels was scheduled to be removed and scrapped, prompting the museum to ask if we could have the entire facade. The new owners hardly approved, and the entire facade was removed panel by panel and reinstalled on the museum's main street. We even acquired and rehung the original front door in all of its patina glory. The town square that runs along Main Street is home to some of our largest signs. This McDonald's sign is from Huntsville, Alabama, and dates from the early 1960s. It features the original mascot, Speedy, who advertised their speedy service system, now simply known as fast food, with his scurrying neon legs. We restored the neon on one side of the sign to the way it would have appeared in the 1960s, with burgers costing 15 cents and over 1 billion sold. On the other side, you will see how the sign came to us in 2008.
That's cool.
That is.
Our spinning globe is from Compton, California, and originally identified an Earl Shutt auto painting franchise. The company slogan was, any car, any color, 1995. Because the
That's
cost was so
something.
cheap,
Any car,
we
any
had to
color,
mask off their
1995.
tires, windshield, and chrome, or they would have painted red over them. Ironically, the sign is one of the few we chose to repaint. The paint was completely gone, as was the Saturn-like ring in the neon cars, but the sign was so cool we opted to do a complete restoration, which is very unusual for us. A complete restoration, that is, except for the bullet hole. Finally, our circa 1958 Howard Johnson sign was originally located in Utica, New York. The first Howard Johnson started as a corner pharmacy selling soda and ice cream in 1925 and eventually became famous for its 28 flavors of ice cream. By the end of 1939, over 100 Howard Johnson restaurants operated in the United States. This sign features characters inspired by the children's nursery rhyme, Simple Simon met a pie man going to the fair. They chose these characters to promote their restaurants as being family friendly. Today, only one restaurant in Lake George, New York operates under the name of Howard Johnson. However, it is no longer officially related to the brand. We'll end today's visit with one of our favorites here at the museum, the Big Boy. Depending on where you're from in the United States, you might know the Big Boy by a few different names. In Cincinnati and the surrounding area, he is Frisch's Big Boy. But in California, he is Bob's Big Boy. In Michigan, he's
didn't know
Elias
that.
Brothers' Big Boy. And in Chicago, he is Manners or Mark's Big Boy. Ours is a local Frisch's Big Boy from the 1960s, and he was a bit different from the one we know today. First, the red hair. The stereotype at the time was that redheaded children were more mischievous than other children were, so they thought a redhead mascot would be seen as playful. Knowing that hair color has no such connection to personality, Big Boy's hair changed to black. Second is the 3D slingshot in his back pocket, which was also a symbol of playfulness. As slingshots became more associated with weapons and toys, it was slowly reduced and eventually removed from the design. Our Big Boy's fashion is different as well. He wears striped pants rather than checkered and has saddle-style shoes rather than solid black. He's also a little more well-fed than our modern Big Boys. He's a great example of how attitudes change through time. It's a lesson you can see repeated throughout the museum. Thanks for virtually visiting. We have more to see if you are able to visit us in Cincinnati. Fashion Frocks building in Camp Washington, itself over 100 years old, perfect for the growing collection. We reopened in this location in June of 2012. The collection you are about to see dates from the late 1800s through the 1980s and includes objects from all across the United States. The technology used to make signs. The letter materials range from wood, metal, porcelain enamel, glass, or plastic. The wall also outlines the 3 periods of illuminated signs. The first period, 1900 to 1930, we call the light bulb era, as the only form of illumination was the incandescent light bulb. Is the neon era, which began in the mid-1920s and continued well into the 1960s as the dominant form of illumination. The third we call the plastic era, 1945 to 1980, which began with the introduction of plastic after World War II. the signs of which were predominantly illuminated with fluorescent lamps. In the late 1980s, LEDs were introduced and have become the chief method of illuminating signs. The museum's collection, however, largely ends in the late 1960s, so we will not discuss LEDs today. Our wooden sign collection dates from the late 1800s through the 1940s. Although wood signs have been one of the most common type of painted signs, they are the most difficult to find in good condition since wood does not weather very well in the outdoors. When we do acquire wood signs, it is our general policy to not repaint them because the fading, discoloration, or other weathering is part of that particular sign's history, and we want to preserve that history. For example, you can see chips in the gold leaf on the carved wooden letters. Gold leaf is actually applied in very thin sheets to the wood and thus is very susceptible to damage. On other painted wood signs, sections of the wood itself may be split, chipped, or missing. You might call it patina, but again, it's part of that sign's history. Trade sign, that is, a sign fabricated in the shape of a symbol that represents the business identified or the product sold by the business. A pipe wrench, for example, might identify a plumbing business, but it could also represent a hardware store. Similarly, a three-dimensional shoe would front the shop of a cobbler or shoe store. Trade signs were very common at the turn of the 20th century and earlier, when a significant percentage of the general populace was illiterate or non-English speaking. They are still employed today when a period look is desired to suggest the branded business has been in existence for many years. Memorable examples of painted wood signs, such as those created for Burma shave beginning in the 1920s. They too once proliferated across America's highways and byways, but have disappeared. This is not so much because of the poor weather ability of wood, but because they became collectible. So much so that Burma shave signs have been reproduced and are often sold as originals, so buyer beware. Our set of 6, however, are authentic. From inside the cabinet by a string of incandescent light bulbs, the patented 1910 technique reminds us of the light-bright boards of our generation. Most of the signs featured here are internally illuminated by light bulbs, but in the Daughters of America example, the light bulbs are exposed. The Great Depression, and continued in the post-World War II period. Neon signs are created by bending a glass tube into a shape using a hot flame. The sign maker then seals the tube with electrodes on either end and fills the tube with neon or argon gas. When the electrical current runs through the electrodes,
There were many of them. Yeah. Right.
The tube glows red-orange in the case of neon, or blue in the case of argon. Other colors are achieved by using either colored glass or phosphorescent coatings applied to the inside of the glass. For example, a yellow glass tube pumped with argon can achieve green. Coated tubes generally appear white when not electrified, but the different powders create different colors in combination with the red, orange, and neon or the blue of argon. Generally, the warm colors such as pink and orange use neon. The cool colors like white, green, and purple use argon. Pre-World War II neon signs utilized clear and then later colored glass, so selection of colors was limited. The selection of colors greatly expanded in the post-war when coated glass predominated. But the increased spectrum of colors was not enough to sustain the market for neon signs when the more modern, and to some degree cost-effective, technology of plastic was introduced. Neon became associated with less mainstream and more seedy businesses related to gambling and other vices. Resurgence of an interest in neon first occurred in the late 1970s and has resurfaced in the 21st century.
So this is the actual storefront, and they reclaimed it, brought it here. This is the door to the store, the actual door. Look at the bend from people pushing or pulling. I mean, they left it as authentic as possible, and they brought the entire storefront of Ross department store here, Ross hardware store. It's pretty amazing that they were able to do that. I love that they talk about how they keep everything original. None of their signs are restored except for only a few. So kind of reminds me of an old Woolworths. Back in Indiana, you know, we had a lot of Woolworths signs. Pretty awesome. It's amazing that they were able to keep it intact and bring it here. Marshall Field's storefront here. Marshall Field, 200 Main Street. Delaney's. Zips. Eat at Zips. So earlier I passed this Kelly Springfield Tires sign by, but I wanted to read that this is a sign from 1950, internally illuminated sign, and it features colored glass buttons. So these are actually glass, and the light is inside the sign. There's one just sitting here, but look, it's actual thick, heavy glass. But this sign here, the glass has a threaded stem, enabling them to be screwed into the holes in the sign cabinet. And on the rims of the button, it reads patented July 26, 1910. So think about that. The car manufacturing was just in its infancy. You know, the Model T Ford, I mean, Henry Ford was just starting to come up with the idea and probably testing and tuning and everything. But 1910, you know, there were cars out, but they were more horse and buggy carriage with a little motorized engine. So to think about that, the Kelly Springfield tires, we think of a tire today as a big car tire, but the tires that this sign was representing were narrow, little tires, and even maybe bicycle tires. The sign was manufactured by American Sign Company in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Ajax cord tires. Never heard of it. That has to be really old. And these are original signs, unrestored wood, which are very hard to find in good condition because of the aging of wood. So you come in through the entrance, they have a really nice gift shop, and then they have a place where you can sit and rest. You pay to enter here, and then you go right into the museum entrance here, where you see some fascinating signs. Starts out the pre-lit area, all they had was wood and 3D lettering, and then they go into the era during lighting when that was introduced, all the way around. And they're doing a tour here. You can get a tour. It takes quite some time to go through the tour, but if that's what you prefer, you can get that done. But these are wood painted signs from the 1900s over in this area. Really great museum, really well thought out, a lot of history here. The owner and curator of the museum worked in signage, and they tell about that when you go through the museum as well. So, well, that wraps up the tour of the American Sign Museum in Cincinnati, Ohio. If you haven't been here, I highly recommend coming. Thanks for watching.